You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Oh, this is a great show today. We got a great show today for everybody. You know, it's Father's Day weekend, and it's a good time. And I know that many of you have gotten your cards. You might not live nearby, or you might, and you've gotten your Father's Day cards. And it's funny. It's funny how I don't understand it. It's almost like every other year I get the card like 2 weeks beforehand, and I feel really happy about that. And then I fill out the card, and I fill out the front of the envelope, and then guess what? Yeah, I have no stamps, and usually that's how it goes. And then you wait till Thursday, and you finally send it out, and then your card goes there and gets there about Tuesday, Wednesday the next week, and you're trying to convince the fact that you actually did think about Father's Day, and it was on your mind. Anyway, we'll see what the United States Postal Service does to help me out this year. And again, I was running late. However, I really did think about my dad, and I thought about how important it is to reach out to my dad. And I think that some of you listening today have had a really good connection with your father. I'm sure that, your relationship with your dad was very important. Some of you might have had more tumultuous relationships with your father. Some of you might have had fathers that were kind of absentee. Some of you might be fathers right now, been fathers. Some of you might have followed in your father's footsteps, being a father to your children. Some of you may have done the opposite of what your fathers did, and you decided that you were going to be that dad that was going to be there no matter what. The one thing that I have realized, and I think you understand, is that we see a lot of films out about how someone treats their children wrong and they treat them poorly. And we see what usually happens to those children. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes, even in the worst of situations, people make changes and do what they see as right, even in the worst of scenarios. But a lot of times when children are surrounded by parents who are not being the best they can as a parent and helping their child, we see where some of the breakdown happens. We see where children suffer, and we see where that directly relates to the future of their life. I find that parenting is such a big deal, and as many of you know, probably because you've listened to my show for a number of years, I don't have any children, and I think that, and I love children, but I think that having a child is one of the most important things you can possibly do, and it can't be taken lightly. It's got to be something that's taken it's got to be very important. It's got to be done with understanding and respect, and it's got to be something that's done properly. And many of you might be listening to the show and say, hey, my dad was always there for you. Many of you might say, hey, my dad wasn't really there for you. Some of you might have said, hey, my dad was there. He did his best. He had to work to take care of the home. He had to work to take care of the family. And so I didn't get to see him a lot. And so joining me later in the hour is Hal Price. Hal is just wrote the book, The Bear Essentials. And The Bear Essentials and Eli Bear Stories. And it's really, it's just a great book. And I think it really speaks to adults and children alike. And it's very important because I think that it's so important to be a parent. And the importance of the time with your children does not need to be taken for granted, and it needs to be looked at not as like a job, but as an important responsibility. And I think that this is something that we're going to be talking about here later in the hour. We're going to be talking about fathers and their impact on the children, and then also how I believe that parents need to take a leadership role with their kids. We need to have a leadership role when we take this with our kids. And the biggest thing too is that, whatever we basically say to children, like, they regurgitate it, right? And it's interesting, and that part of it is fascinating. And I remember, as a child, my parents were like these giants, and you look up to these giants and you go, God, and they're like your world. And so when a parent does the right thing and steps up to the plate and does what they need to for their kid, no matter what their past is, no matter how they were raised, it's pretty powerful stuff. And I think that's what's so neat about it, is that we're going to be talking about that. I want to also focus on one of the biggest, most important things to me is finding unconditional love for yourself and being able to see value in yourself. And I think that nowadays more than ever, it's so important. And it's so hard to stay true to yourself. It can be so challenging because there's so much media, telling you what to believe, what to think. There's so many people telling you what to wear, what to eat, what to drink. There's so much stuff on the news. There's so much stuff trying to fit in. I remember growing up, and in elementary school and middle school and high school, and all you wanted to do was fit in. You didn't want to do anything else but fit in. You didn't want to be the person that rocks the boat. You didn't want to be that one that everybody was oh my gosh, what's she doing now? You wanted to be the one that fit in. And we want to fit in so bad. And many of us adults want to fit in so bad. We want to do what everybody thinks we should be doing. We want to define ourselves the way that we feel like everybody wants us defined. And we find that value because we haven't found that internal value inside ourselves. And I think that that's something that's so important to figure out. And I think that many of us, as we go through life, kind of wax and wane on that. We find that unconditional love and we work to cultivate that. But it takes so much work to get there. That's why I wrote the book, The 10-Day Challenge to Live Your True Life, is because it's based on how to find that unconditional love for yourself. And it begins with standing up for yourself, and it begins with figuring out who you are and understanding and defining yourself and figuring out what that means, and then your values, your morals, your ethics, your beliefs, and then figuring out the boundaries, and then kind of basically every single day needing to take accountability on who you are and who you say you are and who you are. And sometimes that can be so challenging in this world because sometimes we don't feel like we're good enough, that we're valuable enough, that we bring enough to the table, and we feel like we got to be somebody else, or we got to have something, or we got to put on this mask, or we got to do this to be accepted and loved by other people. I think a lot of us were raised with a bill of goods that we weren't good enough, that something was wrong with us. We were raised believing that we weren't pretty enough or not handsome enough, or we were raised to believe we were not smart enough or fast enough or unique enough. And I find that interesting because I feel that all of us are, but we can be told something and believe it for all of our lives until we let it go. I've been watching a show on Netflix, and I don't watch a lot of stuff, right? You don't ever hear me talking about watching a lot of stuff, but I've been watching The Umbrella Academy on Netflix. And it's interesting how all these kids had powers, superpowers, right? And then one supposedly didn't. But we find out that one actually does. And that she was given medication her whole life to offset that so that she seemed regular, normal, not interesting. And she believed that. And it's interesting, the pain and suffering that's coming out of the back end of that story, because you tell a child a fib and you lie, or you bring them down, or you don't let them cultivate their own love in their own heart, or you're not there to be there to really help them to see their true self. And I think that's a commitment that we have to have. That's a commitment we all have to have when we have children. No matter how they can get on your nerves, they're definitely not angels. But at the same time, understanding the value that is. And I think it's a great time right now to really pause and think about the ways that dads can make a difference in the lives of their children. And I think that, fathers, mothers, you can instill a sense of self. You can help them, to understand the world around them. And it's interesting because even research shows that fathers' positive engagement can improve a children's overall well-being, even if they don't live full-time with the child. And I found that a lot of times, it gets hard because things get in the way, like work and providing what you think you need to do. And it's hard, and you see TV, and you see all this stuff, and you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and you're trying to do this, and trying to make ends meet, and it's hard, and you get tired, you get frustrated. And sometimes, with technology, we forget. We get on that phone, God bless us, and we just go on, and we're looking at Facebook or Instagram, or we're on LinkedIn, or we're on, the internet looking up something, and we forget we don't engage with our kids. We get out of there and we don't engage. And that positive engagement helps a child to improve and understand who they are to positively impact their well-being. And that's what's so powerful. And I feel that nowadays the definition of father is evolving and changing, because I think that many of you listening might have not have had the best experience in the world with your father. Some of you might have, and you might have been extremely lucky. But I think a lot of times, more than not, many people haven't had that experience. And so when they have children, they're trying, I'm going to do the opposite of what my dad did. I'm going to do everything right. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be there for my kids. I'm going to go to every game. I'm going to be there for everything. And I don't know if it's all quantity. I don't know if it's about going to every game. I don't know if it's about reading a book at night every single night. I think it's about finding that time and finding the quality time and being able to use that time and really be present in the moment, in a mindful moment, to be able to help your child to really step into that role of being eventually an adult and having their own children. But I think it's about quality time. And it's about setting some of that time on the side to have that quality time, to do what you have to do, to love what you love doing, and to really impact that child. And I think nowadays, more than anything, this world is tough, it's challenging, and we need support systems more than ever. And, you know, a child growing up, one of the things that I realize in the work that I do is that self-esteem and self-worth is so challenging for most people. It's so challenging. Why? Because most people were not taught that they are valuable within themselves. Quite the opposite. They're actually taught that their value is directly related to how they make other people feel, or what they do for other people, or how they acquiesce, or whatever. And it's based on what they're doing for other people. And it's great to do things for other people. I'm not saying let's all turn narcissistic and be a bunch of jerks. But what I am saying is that we have to realize that our value isn't just dictated by what we do for other people. It's actually dictated by who we are and how we feel about ourselves. And that can be really hard to learn. And I learned that about 18, 19 years ago. But every day I have to remind myself of that. Every day. And, you know, it's interesting because when we look at this, we need to realize that first and foremost, no matter what's happened in the past, you can reset right now. You know, if you're a father and things have been over your head, or you're trying to figure out what to do, or you don't know where to go because your dad wasn't there, now it's the time. You don't have to look at the past wrongs. You don't have to be guilty. Try not to be guilty, because what I found is that when we screw up, we don't want to just wallow in guilt. We need to actually have a plan. Activate that plan, use that plan, and do it. So if you're a dad and you're ready to jump in and you're listening to the show, get some tips and tricks today. And you know, Hal's going to offer some real sage advice as well. Okay? And this is going to help. We can start right now. Start anew. Okay? This is powerful stuff. It's a clean slate. Come on. Father's Day is tomorrow. It might as well. Let's just start again and learn some stuff, do some stuff, and start growing with your kiddo, okay? Live Your True Life Perspectives with me, Ashley Burgess. We'll be talking more. Hal will be joining us in just a few seconds. Don't turn it off. We'll be back this time. You know it. We'll be back to shakes.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're doing a Father's Day weekend feel-good show today. And I'm actually getting to work with and talk with somebody that I am just very interested in. You know, an award-winning and best-selling children's author, Hal Price, is joining us here live on Live Your True Life Perspectives. His latest release book, The Bare Essentials, is award-winning, and it teaches children the importance of listening to the wisdom of their hearts and reminding them of unconditional love that we share with our fathers. Hal is the father of 3 purpose-driven children and the grandfather to 2 adorable angels. Hal, great to have you live here on Live Your True Life Perspectives. How are you doing today?
Ashley, I've never been better. Thanks for having me with you.
I am so glad to have you on the show, and I have read the Bare Essentials probably 3 or 4 times now. I absolutely love it. Tell me, what was your, what was your muse? What was the reason for writing this book?
Well, when I was young, my mom used to always read me a bedtime story, but she'd come in first in the middle of the night and just say, "Tell me what the best part of your day was." And we'd talk about my day, and she would make up a silly rhyme every night before I'd go to sleep, and then she would read me a little golden book. And I just felt safe and sound during that time period. And fast forward 50 years, my mother was diagnosed with dementia in 2000. It became Alzheimer's by 2011. And I went in to visit her. We finally had to let her go to an Alzheimer's center. And I went in to visit her the day before her 83rd birthday, and I leaned in to give her a kiss, and she just knocked the crap out of me and said, "Who are you, and why are you trying to kiss me?" And I just said, "I'm your son." She says, "No, my son is 3 years old." And I knew then that she was starting to slip away, and it just took me back. But I went home, and I went to the attic, and I found all the little golden books that she ever read me. And I knew I wasn't going to let her leave me that easily. And I cleaned them up, but I also found my bear, Eli Benjamin Bear, in the attic. And I took him back the very next day, and I went to her, and I said, "Ma'am, I'd like to read you a story if it's okay." And I started reading those little golden books, and I put the bear in her lap. And she began to mouth the words to every story she ever read me. So in that moment, I knew that bond of bedtime stories and just nurturing each other and that quality time that you were talking about earlier in your show is so critical for all of us, not just with parents, but with grandparents and with friends and everything. And that memory stayed with me. So when I retired from pushing my life a little too hard, I was not living my true life, I should say. And I just got caught up in a system that was swallowing me up, and I had forgotten who I was, what my gift was, and had been using it in the wrong way. I moved to California back in 2014 and decided to start writing from my heart. And that book was, these little words started coming back to me, both from my mother from the other side and just from my own higher consciousness. That just said, remember who you are. You have a gift that you're meant to bring into the world, and you need to bring it now. The world needs your words to let people remember how to listen to their hearts and remember how special they are.
I think that's so true. I mean, Hal, I have so many questions to ask you because I really want us to get into, when we return, talking more about,
Yep.
the importance of being there with your kids. And I know that you have children and how important that was to you, right? I mean, and that's something that you also want to share in this book.
Well, the book brought out in me a moment with my youngest son who had won something at school, and I ran the sports marketing department for the Coca-Cola company for years, and I was gone so much at the time. And one day, when I was getting ready to leave, he said, "Dad, are you not going to come to my event?" And I'm like, "I can't. I've got a big job to do today somewhere in another city." He said, "Dad, if I had your job, I'd quit." And that just stuck with me. And so I put that line in the book to talk about the decisions the parents and children have to make and understand how we work in the world. So I just wanted to share that with you. And my kids inspired that.
That's so awesome. Hal's going to be with us throughout the whole show, so stay tuned. We got a lot to talk about. We got some good stuff, guys, and so it's time. So if y'all are a dad, you have kids. If you don't have kids, you're just thinking about your dad, this is a great show to listen to. Live Your True Life Perspectives will be back this time. We'll be back in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're talking about the importance of fathers. It's Father's Day weekend, and it's really important. And joining me here live on Live Your True Life Perspectives is Hal Price. Hal is the author of Bare Essentials, and he didn't start being a children's book author, okay? It's not like he did this his whole life. He was marketing and branding executive for 2 Fortune 100 companies, his own branding agency for professional athletes, including like Jeff Gordon. And then eventually one day he decided to make some changes. And he started realizing what he valued. And Hal, I'm so glad to have you on the show. We were talking on the phone the other day, and it was interesting. And you were telling me, the importance of the time at night with your children. And how that importance at night, how you can make the child feel safe and comfortable and secure, and how important that is.
Absolutely. As I started writing these books and remembering my mother, and the books are a tribute to my mother, but also a gift from me to my grandchildren and great-grandchildren long beyond me. But as I started to research this, Ashley, I realized that with the advent of handheld devices and two working home parents or just one parent or grandparents raising their children, bedtime stories are slowly dying. They've been decreasing by 30% every year for the last 10 or 12 years. And it's rare now that you find both parents can sit down, spend some time with their children, tell them how special they are, and actually read them a story that they can engage the child in, talk about the they're reviewing with them, hook them in and let them understand. I think it has a lot to do with the lack of empathy and compassion that kids have now because they don't feel safe. So I call myself the bedtime story guy because I'm trying to revive bedtime stories. There are a lot of great stories about for children now, and especially more mindful books. I wrote one mindfulness award for 2018 for just conscious writing to alert kids to who they are, how special they are, and how to live life from their hearts.
It's interesting how your audio was going out just a little bit, and it was a little hard to hear. But I caught it though. You said something about the bedtime stories, and that's the thing is that I feel like a lot of times we don't do those things. I mean, like reading a bedtime story, how important that is, and how just a little bit of time put into that. And I think you're right. Like you said something about your mother with the golden books, and everybody, if you know what a golden book is, it's like where the spine has that little gold it's I guess it's like a gold leaf or something like that, kind of gold leaf looking kind of thing, like foil, right? It was like gold foil.
Yeah.
But they were tiny little books, and it's not like it takes a long time to read it, but it was like the effort and the energy that it took to read it and the dedication. And I think that's where you're going at right now too, and that's what's so interesting. It's like, if talking to all the parents out there today, and especially folks that have younger children, I mean, what are some ideas that you want to share with them about maybe this isn't something they've been doing, maybe this wasn't something that their parents did. What is some advice for them to get them kind of in the groove to doing that and kind of the reason behind it?
Well, first, I think it's kind of cool that parents can go back and say, when I was your age, this is a book that I used to love to listen to every night. And to create that bond to say, I'm just like you. You're going to go through the same things that I did, and let's just talk about the importance of just having a ritual that connects us, whether it's just camping or fishing or reading a story or whatever it is. It's that quality time that you're talking about where all of a sudden you just feel this deeper connection, which allows you to open up, to be able to share your heart, share your feelings, share your fears, and to even have parents talk about some of their own fears when they were that age. To just say, when I was your age, I used to look under the bed every night before I go to sleep to make sure I was going to be okay. And my mom and dad would come in and tell me, it's okay, we pull everything out. So just those little rituals that helps connect the family, connects the children, connect their hearts, and connect memories. And like I said, that memory of my mother reading those little golden books to me was what brought her back to me to let me know that she was inside that body that didn't remember who she was.
I feel that it's interesting. It's like nowadays, and I think because of all the noise and all the media and the phone, for God's sakes, I realized yesterday that I think, I'm not a full-on addict, but, I'm close on that phone addiction. You know what I mean? Like, I got a phone addiction. I'm creeping up on maybe I'm not at the facility level yet, okay? But, I've realized that a lot of us are addicted to these, and we get on them, and we don't think about it, and you get lost, and next thing you know, you're 45 minutes in, you get home late at night, you're 45 minutes in, you're eating, you're on the phone, and it's almost like a divider between, the kids and yourself.
What I love about the the COVID-19, is that it gave everybody an opportunity to put the world on pause, to reclaim themselves, reunite with their families, and learn who their neighbors are. We did a program here in the community here in Carpinteria where I hid bears in the community, so when families would go for a walk, they could find a bear and just take it home for a hug, so there was something safe they could hug. in my own little neighborhood, we put the bears in the window with one word, and everybody had a different word. And the people walking had to write down the address, write down the word, and they would turn it in every Sunday night while they walked the community with their families. And every Sunday night we'd have a drawing to give away a bear and a book to my neighbors. And it was just a great way to I didn't know half the people in my neighborhood until that happened.
Wow. That's so awesome. That's what bringing people together is. And that's even adding another layer of it, is that's something that's so important to me too, is knowing my neighbors. And I know that some of my neighbors don't necessarily want to hang out with me. But I do have some neighbors that we really enjoy each other, and that's something that's really important too, is creating that sense of security around you as well.
Right.
And I think that goes even further down the road as far as for kids to feel secure about that and also follow that lead in their own adult life.
Well, and because of the noise that you're talking about, Ashley, how many people really know their children?
Exactly.
I mean, we're running in so many different directions, and it's just give us an opportunity to let them know who you are, what you care about, find out what they love, find out what their passions are, sit down and draw, color, use your imagination, tell stories, and talk about your own childhood so they have a piece of you always inside of them.
And I love what you're saying too in the book. As you read through it, and I love the images. The illustrations are so amazing, and there's one part that I really think is great. I mean, I love the whole book, but there's no one else like you, my child. You are stardust made from love. Appreciate the life you have, and thank your stars above. I promise you can change the world. Allow your feelings to be felt, and trust the wisdom of your heart to let you be yourself.
Yeah.
That's cool stuff.
I tell you, I wrote that book as a mantra for children to just have, because for me, what was important, Ashley, was there was a cadence and a rhythm and a message and a heart that came through my mother every time she read me a story. And that's what bonded our memories. And that I wrote that book as a mantra to remember who, and the books that I write, Ashley, they're not for children. They're for the child in all of us that want to remember who we are, and are we on purpose? Just like you're saying, live your true life. Are you on purpose? So I'd say 5% of the world is on purpose right now. There's a gift everybody has. Very few people get in touch with it, or they give it away to the wrong people who abuse their stuff. So I don't like my gift anymore, and that's what happened to me, which is why I had a heart scare back in 2014. I was not serving my purpose. I was giving my writing away to people that could make the most money with what I wrote. So,
see, that's interesting, and I agree with you about it's about us. Like when I read this, it really put some stuff in perspective, and it was interesting because opposite of what most people did during COVID, I worked 3 times harder, and I was in the office 6 days a week, and I never stopped, and I never got any reprieve, and I probably should have, but I didn't. I did the opposite of like the whole world, pretty much. And you know what
I love, Ashley, is you read that book. You took the time to read that book 3 times.
Yeah.
So you got something out of it.
Yeah. It was good. I mean, I would read it again, and the coolest thing too is that different. And you're right about the book. Different from some children's books, you can read this multiple times and you get new stuff out of it. You don't even remember some of the stuff previous, so it's not like, it's not a couple words on a page. This is kind of deep stuff, and it really does put it in perspective. And what I like what you said is it's like connecting, because I feel that most of us, even as adults, don't think that we're good enough.
Yeah, exactly. So what I did, Ashley, I didn't know I was doing this when I started it, but I wrote the book so that depending on where you are personally in consciousness is the message that you're meant to get. So it can reach beyond just 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds. It can touch the heart of a 70-year-old to remember something, or just to say, am I living my purpose? Who am I really? And did I do what I came here to do? And it's kind of a wake-up call, if you will, but it's kind of a sneaky wake-up call.
It is a sneaky wake-up call. You're right. I mean, you're right. That's the thing. It is kind of sneaky because there are different pieces that you take from it. And some of you may feel, okay, my dad wasn't there, or I didn't get the children, I didn't get that experience, and now you're kind of getting that here. Some of you are getting reminders of what you did, and then some of this is reminding you of, wow, okay, you've gotten a little off target, you've gotten a little off center, you've changed or masked yourself because you felt like you had to do that, or you had to put a title on that wasn't true because you felt like nobody would respect you without it, or whatever it is that you think or you took this job even though you didn't want it, but it was a good job that everybody looked at you. Oh, they respected you because of the job, but you hated it. And it's
the
like
deadly combination for me, almost took my heart from me in 2014, was the need to achieve and the need to please. And if you can't achieve personally what your focus is in the world, why you're here, and achieve that for yourself, you've got to please you first to drive what your purpose and your destiny and your passion is, so that it wakes other people up to see, oh gosh, they're living their purpose. How wonderful is that? I want to do that.
And I think the thing too is that sometimes because of social media, this is for all y'all adults out there and children and teenagers and young adults, we compare our lives to other people based on what we see presented in front of us by pictures, and that can be really hard to really refocus on what purpose really means for each person.
Yes, right. Exactly.
How do we do that then? How can you help somebody, whether you're an adult, how do you refocus that energy from, judging yourself to really refocusing that inward?
Well, two things that I did, because I knew I wanted to work with children when I moved in towards retirement. One, I did a thing called the passion test. I became a passion test for kids and teens facilitator to help people find out, especially me first, what did I come here to do? And it's a wonderful program, and I also did a program that Deborah Poneman does. She's actually running a seminar this weekend called Yes to Success, the 5 Pillars of Your Ultimate Life. And they really drill down to help you find out who are you and why are you here and why are you wasting so much time.
That's awesome. Yeah, why are you wasting time, and what are you wasting time on? Or what are you trying to do based on what you think you have to do?
Exactly. Once you know what you're here to do, then you have to put your strategy together. But the beauty for me, and I know we're running into our segment here, but once I wrote the book, I've been marketing all my life, but I let go of the marketing. I let the book market itself, and I'll tell you in the next segment some of the magic that happened when I just turned the book loose and said, go do your job and I'll follow you.
Wow, that's interesting. And I think that's interesting impact for everybody listening, on the show. And, one of the things that I really pride myself with Live Your True Life Perspectives is we always have people on here that know what they're talking about. They're experts in their field, but they really contribute something to society. They contribute something to us, to our heart, to our soul, to our minds, to our beings. And it's like, see, that's interesting because I think a lot of times we don't see it that way. How we see it?
No.
You don't. No. You see it the opposite. It's like you create this and then you freak out about it. And then you try to push it out there as much as you can. And so you basically said, hey, I created this, now let's see what happens?
Yeah, I knew I had my angels and my mom from above and a lot of other people saying, finally, you're doing what you... There was a gift that you were given. You've been sitting on it and using it the wrong way. Now, we're going to reward you by saying, we're going to line you up with people that are going to love what you're doing. And just let us do that. You don't have to do a heavy marketing campaign. Just be you, speak your truth, use your heart to say your words, and follow the guidance, because they're going to be giving you signs of where you're supposed to do and where you're supposed to go to do it. And it's worked out exactly that way for me. That's how I found you.
That's awesome. Awesome. I'm in that group. I like that. I'm in that group. I love that. So everybody that's listening, y'all, it's really important to follow your heart. And it's hard to figure out that because a lot of times we've never been taught to listen to our heart. And so when we return, we're going to be talking more about, how to listen to your heart. I mean, really, how to listen to your heart. And then, Hal's going to give us some tips on doing that. No matter what your age, this is the most important thing. And one thing that I've realized is that unconditional love for oneself is the most important thing you can do. And once you understand that component, you can understand how to unconditionally love other people. But if you don't know how to unconditionally love yourself, you cannot do it for anybody else because you do not understand it. And I get it. I've been there. I was there about 18, 20 years ago. I didn't get it. And then I started figuring it out because I realized I had to figure out who I was. I had to understand my value. And then I had to parlay that into something bigger. And I realized that that's the reason we come in this world on our own and we leave on our own, because the most important relationship is with ourselves. And then we can radiate that to other people. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Today we're getting ready for our Father's Day weekend. Many of you are going to be doing some cookouts, you're going to be hanging out, social distancing Father's Day, whether maybe you're in a phone call or a FaceTime or, something like that. But, the importance of that is so powerful, and Hal Price is joining me here live on the radio. He's the author of best-selling children's book, The Bare Essentials, and it's really not a children's book, guys. It's for adults. It really has some meaning to me, and I've read it 3 times. Hal, right before the break we were talking, I wanted you to offer some advice on how, for everybody listening, no matter what your age, it's all about how we feel. How do you begin to listen to your heart?
What I've done was I have to move into silence completely, or into nature. I moved here 5 years ago from Atlanta, Georgia, to Carpenter Reels. I call it Mayberry at the Beach, a little small town just south of Santa Barbara. And there are so many options for me to go in nature and just be inspired and listen and give gratitude for all that the planet gives me. And I would just sit there, and I have two things that I do. One is walking in nature and just sitting and asking for inspiration to give me the words or some thought that can turn into a poem, which I do. I write a poem every day just to stay in practice. And the other is I wake up at 3 o'clock every morning, and I write down a thought that I'm having, and I turn it to stay in practice. I turn it into a poem also. So I just have to get still, look for inspiration for things that our Creator has put around us, to know that we are magical and we are miracles, here to create miracles. And we just lose sight of that fact that we're very special and all have a very unique talent, that if we don't do it, you just can't die with your music inside. It's such a waste, such a waste.
And the unique talent is powerful, and that's what I want everybody to focus on right now, is that it might not be what you came in thinking. It might not be the title you thought you were going to have, but it's about that talent that you have that nobody else has. Yes.
I mean, what happened to me, I used to write a lot of marketing plans and new business presentations and things, so I was using my gift. I love to write and I love to speak, but I was working 17 hours a day for several weeks, and ultimately my body could not sustain the stress levels for something that I was writing and trying to refine and make better and better, when there was something that was in me that would come very easily. And I woke up on February the 24th in 2014 at 4:24 in the morning. My blood pressure was 217 over 180, and it said, "You've got to make a big choice today." My heart grabbed me for a change and said, "You have to make a choice today. You can use the gift that I gave you to use, or you can be an angel on the other side and inspire and be a guardian for another writer somewhere. But your gift has to come, and you've got to quit doing the way you're doing it." And I snapped too. I'm telling you, I lost 110 pounds. I moved to California, and I surrendered to grace to allow my gift to find me the way it wanted to come through me.
Powerful stuff. How do we find you?
My website is www.eli, stories.com. And I also have a special section that I did in the back of that book that you've read 4 times, and it'll make 6 by the time I talk to you again. Actually, there's a section where Eli and his father give you a place to go on my website to see what questions Eli asks his heart every day, to ask yourself your own questions and do it with your family. And that's, if you just go to www.elibearstories.com, then /my heart's questions, you'll see the questions that Eli asks his heart every day to check in with himself, to see how he's feeling, and to talk about his feelings with his parents, and to have his parents talk about their feelings with the same questions that the kids ask their own hearts.
That is amazing. I hope that everybody's really enjoyed this show, and how I've enjoyed having you on. I definitely want to have you back on the show. You're an inspiration for all who hear you.
Any minute. You tell me anytime, and I'll be there for you, Ashley.
You got it. Everybody that's listening, it's important to really see your power, your unique style, who you are, what you offer this world, and that unique talent. I've said this before. You do one thing better than anybody else on this planet does. You just got to figure out what that is and not try to put yourself in this, pigeonhole yourself into something that you think you need to. And I know sometimes it can be hard because you see things happening around you, and it's hard to stay still, and it's hard to stay on track. But even if you have to get back centered today, it's your turn to get back centered today. Don't feel guilt. Don't feel shame. That just takes us out of that whole good power, right? Hal, thank you so much.
Amen, sister.
Love
Amen.
the book. Love Bear Essentials, and you're amazing. Can't wait to have you back on. Y'all got to check out Eli Bear Stories. You know, go to elibearstories.com. Check this out. Get this book for you and your kids. And you know it. We'll be back next week live. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time. 3 shakes.